Resident Evil Outbreak is Capcom's attempt at making an MMO within the world of survival horror. Of course, due to the time period they were developing Outbreak, this led to many troubles, and eventually they scaled things back. In the end, we ended up with two games that are single player and multiplayer, originally released in Japan in 2003, then in spring of 2004 for the United States, and who the hell cares about Europe, they suck. The games were PlayStation 2 exclusives, which of course hindered them technically and sales-wise, which led to the fate of the third Resident Evil Outbreak File 3 being cancelled, which would have been the final game of the trilogy of cooperative survival horror games. Capcom has yet to revive the series ever since, because the people in charge are brain-dead retards who don't know what good games are. Hence why they milk Resident Evil 4 and its shitmake over and over again instead. So today, let's look back at Resident Evil Outbreak and why it's the peak of the series' potential, ruined by the crappy PlayStation 2 and its exclusivity. The game is playable solo, with bots, or online. This means there's a character selection akin to Resident Evil 1 and 2, though they're on the same disc unlike Resident Evil 2, and are all connected unlike 1. So pick from one of the 8 survivors, each with their own abilities, some more useful than others, such as Kevin's power shot, an exclusive more powerful handgun, though he needs rare bullets for it to be usable, or even Yoko for her backpack, so you can have 8 inventory slots instead of just 4. Yes, this game keeps the inventory system tradition, but kicks it up a notch, as this is a cooperative game, and they wanted to limit the player's inventory to encourage trading and cooperation. The gameplay is traditional tank controls and fixed camera angles, with the addition of lock-on system and chase cam too. You have a limited inventory of 4 slots and a special item per character. You also have an infection meter. That's right, everyone is infected, and over time, you'll get worse, and eventually being unable to do much but limp and cry for help and drop dead. To avoid increasing your infection, avoid being attacked by BOWs and things like nerve gas. The game can be played alone with bots or online with others via co-op or PvP, though the online has been dead since 2007. For everything you do in each playthrough, you earn points. These points are used in the gallery to unlock concept art, music, new game modes, costumes to play other characters over the base character, and more. Overall, the gameplay is simple and fun if you prefer the traditional gameplay of old school Resident Evil, and I had no trouble with it, outside of the AI not being useful and preferring to solo it themselves and leave me to die. This was fixed in the second game, and made apparent certain characters prefer to help others and hate others. Thankfully in the second game, you can choose your fellow survivors to make it easier or harder this way, on top of their abilities being a good combo with your playstyle. The first game features 5 scenarios, and the start of the Raccoon City Outbreak. You start out in Jay's bar with every potential playable character, yet during gameplay, only you and 2 AI-controlled characters will be in the game. However, online, you could play with many more people, to which good luck doing since Capcom shut down the servers in 2007 for the United States and 2011 for Japan respectively. Let's go ahead and start out with Outbreak. With this scenario, you learn the basics of the gameplay, such as controls, combat, puzzle solving, instant death traps, and using the environment and tools you find to protect yourself for a small amount of time. The game is punishing as the classic trilogy tended to be. As such, expect many game overs till you learn the ropes. But the first scenario is simply entitled Outbreak and is the easiest and best way to get started. Once you complete it, The others will unlock as you progress. Below Freezing Point takes place in the Birkin lab under the city. It revolves around Yoko and her ties to Umbrella and the G-Virus. Here, you get more challenge and face newer enemies. Though if you've played Resident Evil 1 through 3, you know what to expect, BOWs wise. And also the layout of the lab is basically the same, though you do not meet the Birkins, nor the giant alligator sadly. But you do fight a G-monster, just like in Resident Evil 2. Next up is the Hive, which focuses on the Raccoon City Hospital and leeches. You'll be stalked by a leech monster the whole time till you can properly kill it among other monsters. The scenario is much harder and can be a pain solo given the sketchy AI of your fellow survivors. The fourth scenario, you have Hellfire, which takes place in the Raccoon City Hotel, which is on fire. Lots of fire, and zombies, including lickers, that like to come through the events, with one being the boss towards the end. The scenario is a pain solo, and you will be replaying it a lot. Not one of my favorites alongside the Hive. Lots of instant death traps too. Finally, we have Decisions for the fifth and last scenario of the first game. This one is the most difficult to complete, with its puzzles and final boss being a tyrant unlike any other. In fact, this one I never did beat because of the difficulty. Overall, there are 40 endings in the game, with 4 for each of the 8 playable characters. You also have a special ending for online, but that's no longer possible to get hold of unless you look it up online. Let's move on to File 2 and its scenarios, to which I prefer over the first game, outside of Outbreak. The first scenario for the second game is Wild Things, which takes place in the Raccoon City Zoo. The group is led by Cindy. You fight zombies and zombie-fied animals, such as a lion and a rampaging, nearly invincible elephant. This one features plenty of challenges and ways to get through it, though watch out for the instant death alligator pond. Yeah, Resident Evil loves its dinosaurs. Next up is Underbelly, which I hated at first because I couldn't figure it out. Eventually, I learned how to complete the scenario and found it decent. You're in the subway, with it being tied to Jim, the sissy-ass Kevin Hart of the group, who's a subway worker before the outbreak. In this one, you'll face many BOWs, including a giant flea. Honestly, not that bad, but not that great either. For the third one, we have Flashback, which is one of my favorites because of the challenge and plot. You explore a ruined hospital in the Raccoon Forest and get chased around by a maniac with an axe that can't be killed, only wounded and scared off temporarily. You'll find yourself cornered often and using lockers to hide in as he stalks your group of survivors till the very end. I found the ending touching, and the character tied to this scenario is Alyssa, who became canon in the later games. For the fourth one, we have my favorite of this entry, Desperate Times, as it takes place in the Raccoon City Police Department. The zombies are besieging the place, and the surviving officers and people are struggling to defend the place. This one centers around Kevin. You have to locate puzzle pieces to unlock a secret tunnel, to find help, and escape the zombie siege. You get to meet many officers, including Marvin. The challenge is in the zombies and the nerve gas. The nerve gas is constant and cannot be stopped, though you can use a canister to spray the environment to clear it temporarily, with only a few of them being available. If you played Resident Evil 2 and or 3, you know what to expect with the layout, just with less to explore. You can even meet Ben in the holding cells in the basement. In the end, you see how Marvin met his demise, and you also have to fight off dozens of zombies before you're eventually rescued, so you're going to want to stock up on supplies and prepare for the final battle. You even see a police car speed by, which looked like Leon and Claire, but this was debunked by Capcom. Overall, my favorite one of the game. The fifth and final scenario is End of the Road, where David and his group raid an Umbrella facility. Here, we learn more about the outbreak and cure for the virus alongside the corruption of various groups. The scenario is quite difficult and I never did beat it. You face tyrants and BOWs galore on top of a boss that ain't no pushover. Overall, not one of my favorites. The ending is everyone making it out, and the cure is developed alongside survivors using their testimony and ties to Umbrella to take them to court and bring the pharmaceutical company down. There's not that many endings in this one, but it's overall pretty good. Honestly, the first game was good, though the scenarios and their completion can be a pain to understand, especially the Hive and decisions. I also don't like how you can't move and shoot, though this was fixed in the second game. Overall, the first is decent and worth checking out. I give it a thumbs up on the recommendation and 3.5 stars out of 5. For the second game, I give an easy thumbs up on the recommendation and 4 stars out of 5 for great. This is peak classic traditional Resident Evil survival horror at its finest. Too bad Capcom will never acknowledge it and remake it. But after Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 shit makes, I'd rather never have them touch it in the first place.
A lot more than that to stop a tough guy like him. Hell, we haven't even finished training the new recruits yet. Right, Marvin?